There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another Elgato workshop stream. This time, a little bit special because we're talking all about the new Nvidia broadcast integration with our software. And today we have a special guest, Gerardo. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey guys, super happy to be here to chat with you today. And my name is Gerardo. I'm a product manager and I look after content creators.
The way you pronounce that R is just, oh, it's so great. I love it.
And my manager, Phil from
Hey
Elgato.
guys, how's it going? I don't think I need to introduce myself, but I will anyways. Phil, technical marketing manager here for Elgato. Excited to be on yet another live stream and chat with you guys about this awesome integration and these awesome updates that came out today featuring all new NVIDIA technologies.
And myself, my name is Brett. I make videos for Elgato Workshop. And sometimes I host these streams. So we have a lot to talk about. We have a pretty long outline of topics that we want to cover. So first of all, the things that we were going to be talking about today is obviously Camera Hub is the really big one, all about these changed backgrounds. By the way, that is not my real background. That's actually changed. And Phil, you have a little bit of change there as well.
That's my real background, by the way. Yeah, if you can't tell, I just have a green wall behind me.
Took a while to install. And then also we're talking about Wavelink and the brand new integration with NVIDIA Broadcast noise reduction, which is pretty neat. And also HD60X. I have one of those on hand. And also we're having a giveaway, which I see some people are talking about a little bit in the chat. So stay tuned. We'll have some reminders throughout the stream as well. But definitely stay tuned for those giveaways where we are giving
What
away.
are we giving away? Yeah.
Thank you. Is a Wave 3 and a face cam, two separate giveaways. So
Nice.
you have two chances to win. So I guess to start out, like we mentioned, one of the big parts of this integration is with Camera Hub. So Phil, could you talk about a little bit about Camera Hub and what it does for you?
Yes. So Camera Hub is our camera control software that we launched alongside Facecam. It was kind of a first in its class when it came to camera control, or the first of its type, right? Offering you the ability to not only save settings to Facecam, but also control the ISO and the shutter speed of a camera, which is also kind of a first, a world first there. Um, and as the name implies, Camera Hub, it really is the hub for everything you do with cameras. It started with Facecam. We added Cam Link, and we're going to be expanding that. But at the same time, we also wanted to integrate new features into it that allow you to do more with your cameras. And so a pretty obvious choice there was talking to Gerardo and his team at NVIDIA to see, there's these cool background effects and background replacement and all these AI powered tools like, hey, what could we do there? Yeah, so now with this update, you can do a couple different things, right? So you can blur your background like I'm doing. I think Gerardo, you've got that set up as well, right?
Yep.
Or you can do a straight background replacement. Take what's behind you, replace it with an image, something else. Or you can also add a green screen and then chroma key that out in a program like OBS, and then you can essentially do background removal that way, which is also pretty cool. So that's like a quick synopsis of the three things that you can do with today's Camera Hub update. There is one thing that you need to be aware of, though, which is if you want to run any of these effects, you do need a RTX series GPU. So that's a 20 series or 30 series from NVIDIA. And actually, Gerardo, kind of a lead-in question for you. So why is that? Why do I need an RTX 30 series GPU or a 20 series? Basically, what is RTX? What's the difference between RTX and GTX here? Why can't I just use like any GPU?
Right. So on RTX GPUs, we did a couple of changes. One is they have ray tracing accelerators, so we can run ray trace graphics. So that's why people call them RTX, right? But the other thing we added on those GPUs is that they have tensor cores. And the tensor cores essentially do matrix operations for AI. So the advantage of the Tensor Cores is we can run AI networks a lot faster. So these technologies, the point of them is that you can use them while you're live streaming. And when you're live streaming, more likely than not, you're going to be having either a game or some kind of creative app that you're maybe showcasing your art. So we need to be fast enough so you can run the game and you can run this at the same time. So that's why we need the Tensor Cores, because we need to go really, really fast so that we don't destroy your game FPS and destroy your experience.
Yeah, I think I saw a while back there was a version of the broadcast app that could actually run on GTX cards, but it was more or less brute forcing them, brute forcing the noise removal effect, and so it was using up like the entire GPU just for audio.
Yeah,
So
so RTX Voice, the beta version, call it, of NVIDIA Broadcast, actually right now could run on a GTX. We patched it so everyone can use it. The problem is that on a GTX, you don't have the tensor accelerator, so you're running all of that on CUDA. So whereas on the NVIDIA Broadcast networks, like the ones that we're going to talk about later on Wavelink, you can basically see a 3 to 5% FPS delta, which is in the scope of noise, right? You're playing at 144 FPS, maybe you're at 140 now. The challenge on non-tensor GPUs is that you're losing 20, 25, 30% FPS. So that 144 FPS would turn to 100. So
oof,
that's
yeah.
basically what the tensor cores are doing.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is you're taking in like 1080p video, analyzing the whole frame, figuring out where the person is, where the background is, and then cutting that out. So that's a lot of data to do while at the same time, playing games or, rendering something or maybe, editing. I mean, whatever you're doing with your GPU. Um,
And
so
if
yeah,
you're
that's
streaming at the same time, you have to composite all those frames in real time for the stream and code it on the GPU as well, using, which we'll talk about probably a little bit more later on the stream, but NVIDIA's hardware encoder. And then you can also run noise reduction and background removal all in the GPU. So for that, you need all the help you can get through form of tensors.
So, Brett, did you have like a quick demo ready, basically of the background or how that kind of looks now in Camera Hub?
Uh,
So we
Possibly.
can show that.
So
I mean, technically, we're all showing this to you guys
right.
right now, right? And how this works.
So right now, my background, 1/3 of the screen is, my virtual background, which you can change it right there, and that's feeding directly into OBS. But let's see here. I'm working with one monitor right now.
Yeah. So the way it
I can
works
bring it
is
up on screen.
when you have Camera Hub now and you run it, you have a new effects tab. And within that effects tab, you can then choose if you want the background replacement or the background blur. And then in your other applications, say OBS Studio, Streamlabs Desktop, XSplit, Zoom, Teams, whatever it is, the camera source that you choose, instead of being now your Elgato Facecam or your Cam Link, is going to be Elgato Virtual Camera. That's because Camera Hub itself is kind of like it's acting like the camera. It's creating a virtual one, doing all the background replacement or the background blur, and then feeding that into your program. So Camera Hub just kind of sits there, runs in the background. You can close it. You just select the effect, you close it, and then it just does that in the background. What's really nice and one benefit of integrating the NVIDIA Broadcast SDK directly is it's actually essentially one less app running on your computer, right? If you're broadcasting, you want to minimize the amount of stuff going on, the amount of apps open. RAM isn't so much a consideration these days, right? I think we all have enough of that, but you still want to make sure that you have enough resources to game and stream and all of that stuff. And so again, bringing this right into Camera Hub is nice because then you have one less app that you need to run or one less thing that your computer needs to do kind of at the same time.
Yeah, and one thing that we were very worried about at the beginning when we launched NVIDIA Broadcast is we don't want you to have to learn a new workflow, right? If you already have the apps that you love, if you're using the camera, have to adjust your camera, then you're working with OBS or with Streamlabs, we want you to be able to do exactly what you were doing before. Why add complexity? So one of the things that we did from the beginning is these technologies, we release them as SDKs because we want partners such as Elgato to be able to take all of this It's for us, it's great if you guys want to use the Nvidia Broadcast app, but it's also great if you want to use the technologies in Elgato. And if it's simpler for you, it's nicer for you to use, then all the better.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it just makes it easier. And do
I think
we have
so.
it?
That's
We're live. We're doing this live.
yes.
This is a show, not a tell type of live stream.
Hmm.
But yeah, anyway, so I was gonna while you do the audio stuff, the other really cool thing you can do is you can have a green background, and through that you can also chroma key yourself and essentially provide a virtual green screen. So this is one of the things that we actually cover in our announcement video, which Steggy put together. But essentially, if you add a green background. So instead of blurring my background, I can just make it green. I can pull that up right here. So now I have a green background. Now, if I open an application like OBS and I add a chroma key for exactly this color, then the background is gone, and now I can just put myself in the game. You can also see the lines are really crispy. It works really well. It's got a little bit of a thing with my mic arm here, but there we go. So the lines are really well defined, and essentially now you just got yourself your own virtual green screen, or you can just do the background blur if you want. But yeah, it makes it really easy to essentially add yourself into a game and chroma key yourself in. So looks a little bit like witchcraft. Yeah, so what's the popular phrase? If anything that's like you can't wrap your head around, something that's indistinguishable from something is like magic. There's that one phrase, I forget what that's called, or like how that goes. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I think that's what it is,
Right.
right? And like this is the
Yep.
type of thing where it's like, there's my full background. Nobody wants to see that. My wave panels are, they're not correctly aligned. I've got some cables on the back. No one wants to see that. I can blur it out, or hey, you know what? I can just completely put myself in a different environment. That's pretty cool.
So yeah, audio is challenging.
We can also skip that if
Well, I
it's too
mean,
much.
I think people get the idea. We do have a full video
Yep.
all about setting this up in Camera Hub right now, live on Elgato Workshop, so you can see in detail how all that goes together. But you can clearly see the effects in action in the background right now.
Let me see. Maybe I can actually pull it up and paste the link in chat. I do see a question. Does it require RTX? So yes. If you just jumped in here literally like 2 minutes ago, then you might have missed it. But yes, so the background effects do require an RTX GPU. It could be desktop, right? So something like a what is it, 2060, 2070, a 30 series card, could be mobile. But again, the key factor is RTX. It's got to have that R in there. And then you're able to use that. So then next up, as part of this integration, is I think we can cover Wavelink, or essentially our first ever VST release. This is also pretty exciting because, I mean, we've never put out a VST before. And instead of just essentially locking this feature into just Wavelink, we thought, okay, why don't we take the powerful background noise removal, which we'll have a demo of here in a second as well, build that into a VST so that way you can use it in Wavelink as well as any other application that is a VST host. So something like Adobe Audition or DaVinci Resolve, or I mean, there's even your DAW, like your digital audio workstation, anything that's a VST3 host, you can run this inside. And then you get all the benefits of the background noise removal. Maybe Gerardo, you can give some details on how that kind of works and the noise removal. Yeah, essentially, like how does it work? How does it know that like this is my voice and that keyboard typing like isn't my voice?
Right. So we do two things. On the first hand, we detect voices. So it's trained on like a zillion types of voices so that we can try to isolate that. The second thing we do is we train on specific sound patterns. So we have about 25 sound profiles that we have identified that it's trained on, and that's hours and hours and hours of one particular sound. For example, one of the first sounds we released with are keyboards. And actually, Phil sent me a bunch of Corsair keyboards so that we trained on them. So we've trained on all type of cherry keys, etc., so that we can actually do it properly. And the technique that we do is actually called sound separation. So what you try to do is within the same wave, you try to isolate the voice and the background sound. And that's why we achieve better quality than some of the other methods that you have seen. One of the cool things of the Elgato integration is that they actually have a more modern network than the one that we have in the Nvidia broadcast app. So this one we just finished, so we could give it to Elgato. And one of the mistakes I've made in my career was introducing the idea at Nvidia that we should listen to the community. So you bastards decided to vote that the best effect that you wanted me to add was body sounds. So we had to spend 3 months training on body sounds, which was not fun. But it's great because actually, like, if you're doing a lot of video conferencing, if you're doing a lot of live streams, one of the things that can happen is a little fart or a little burp or whatever it is. All of those horrible moments that you do not want on your stream and you do not want them recorded now get cut out. And it's because some poor engineers had to spend a lot of hours training on that. But luckily, for the most part, it's automated.
I was going to ask about that. So did someone have to sit there and listen to every single audio file and then tag it with something, like, oh, this is a fart, this is a burp, or
the way we train it is you have to select the right data to train. So you do have to make sure the data is right. You don't go over every single one of them, but you do some you do sample testing, and basically you make sure that all the data is correct, it's annotated, and then you do have to test it post. So it was kind of a weird process. But this one, for example, before this sprint, the prior profiles that the community asked for example, were cats. Actually, it was pets, and so I assumed pets meant dogs and cats. And it turned out, because I did again the mistake of asking, we ended up having to train on really weird shit. So I mean, snakes was one. Okay, fine. Like some people have snakes, but some parts of
the hissing sound, would that like come through the microphone? Wow.
Yeah. But then some parts of the world have different pets. And one that came up a lot was insects. So we had to train on insects. And I didn't get who the heck has insects. Okay, maybe a tarantula, but I don't know what sound the tarantula makes. So that one was odd. The fun thing is, you guys remember, when was this? Last summer when there was a cicada infestation in the US?
Mm-hmm.
So it just happened when we finished the network. So actually, one of the things we put out is for people in the South, if you're going through this, it actually removes all the cicada sounds. So the training process is always fun.
That's actually quite incredible. Yeah, I didn't think of that. It's
I mean,
like,
even ignoring cicadas, I mean, crickets are just everywhere in the South, and grasshoppers, and actually, I'm not sure if grasshoppers make sounds, but yeah, at night, insects make a lot of sound in the South, like in Florida.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
What was fun is the very first profile the community asked for, because we released the beta RTX voice, when was this? Back in April 2020. So we were at the beginning of the lockdown. The number one profile people asked at the beginning were baby sounds. So it was crying babies, because people were stuck at home and they had their babies crying, their kids crying, and they had to still do conference calls or live streams. And it was kind of amazing how quickly it spread through baby communities. That there's this thing that you can use, that you can still do what you were doing without the baby crying behind you.
I feel like there's a joke I could line up here about, oh, that's why you can't hear anyone streaming anymore. Something streamers are crybabies. No, I'm joking. I didn't say that. But no, that's actually, I mean, all this stuff is really cool to hear, right? How often, what does that look like? I mean, for you guys, and I'm personally just super curious. How often do you guys like evaluate, okay, there's like a new sound that we want to remove? Is this something where like, or do you just have an idea one day? Someone says something like, hey, this sound is really annoying. Can you take it out? And then you kind of have to go and find like examples of it, or how does that work? How do you determine that?
So we have two motions. At the beginning, we had a set of sounds that, according to our research and the customer feedback, we wanted to make sure that we covered. Then once you get past that, you start getting community feedback. Is the sounds that people didn't even think they needed to remove, which is, for example, where cutlery came in. Cutlery wasn't one of the things that we had originally planned, but people sometimes may be eating maybe some cereal while they're doing their stream, and so the cutlery falling on the floor or things like that were a clear
Oh.
one. And then once you get past, so it's first is what you know, then is what you didn't know that you knew. Now we're kind of going into the area where you have less chance of improvement, and you either find something that is really important for a niche of users, or you find ways of improving the quality for the majority of users. So we're kind of going through that discussion now of what is the next round of improvements. One thing that we always want to do is when you do any kind of separation, you're going to lose a bit of quality. So, for example, that's why I always tell people that you shouldn't run the effects at 100%. You run them at
Mhm.
100% if you have that sound profile on you all the time and you want to get rid of it. For example, if you have an AC fan next to you. But if you don't normally have a lot of sound next to you, you're like, I'm in a room alone. I still have the street next to me, but in that case, I can probably run my effect at 80% so I keep quality. We're trying to see if we could bring that closer to 95%, right? If you're running at 100, you're always going to overkill it. But see if we can keep quality at higher levels.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the decision making. And then once you set on a profile that you want to train on, the problem is getting data. You have to get hours and hours of data. So actually, I can make if you guys allow me to make a little plug, I've set up a website on nvidia.com. It's nvidia.com/broadcast feedback. And basically, anyone can just come in and say, I need help with this sound profile, and just record a 15-second sample of the sound profile. So we normally need hours of data to train any sound profile, and that website has been surprisingly effective at helping us with it. So, for example, at the very beginning, we heard from some people, if I scream in a very high tone, the network will cut it, and it's because we overtrained on baby cries. So baby cries have a very high tone, high pitch, and then they were getting confused. So people then came on the website, and then we could see the differences in the wave patterns between let's say a female voice screaming and a baby screaming, and then you can overtune it and make sure that you're separating them correctly. So if anyone has a noise profile you hate that you want to get rid of and we're not getting rid of it, we have that website to come and give us feedback.
That's actually perfect to kind of the next thing I wanted to bring up. There were some questions in chat around, well, I've been in Zoom. Zoom has automatic, essentially background noise suppression. Teams has it. I think Discord has it built in as well. Most of these programs have noise removal. Why do I want to spend some GPU time, to process the sound through the noise removal VST when all these other apps already have it? And really it comes down to the quality. I'm sure you've noticed that when you're in Discord, you have a background fan running, either your quality goes down quite a bit, or your essentially the fan does get let through because it's actually like too aggressive. Um, and by using a machine learning algorithm here, you're really able to target specifically, and that's what Gerardo's been talking about, this like segmentation between, okay, this is human voice, this is a sound, let's remove only the sound, but leave the human voice, leave your voice unaffected. So that way it comes through clearly on the broadcast or in the recording or whatever you're doing. And so that's kind of the key difference there. It's actually really interesting. I mean, if you go into one of these other applications that have more rudimentary noise suppression, if you have like a fan next to you, often your entire voice just kind of gets cut out. Like you'll be able to talk and like some stuff comes through, but it's working really hard because it thinks everything is noise. But that's not true, right? There's noise, but then there's also your voice, and it's not able to distinguish between the two.
Yeah, because that's
Um,
the difference between segmenting the wave and separating the wave. So there's going to be a part of the sound that gets used in both. And so the noise separation is the hard part. There's one extra thing that I always I get that question a lot. I'm already using the Zoom one. The ones that you can find in other applications are running on CPU, and they use quite a bit of CPU cycles. So really, the other thing to think is, do I want to run an AI network on CPU wasting so many cycles, or do I run it on tensor cores using a fraction of the power and getting it done much faster? So it's also from a pure performance perspective, it's more efficient.
Got it. Looks like I'm actually having some internet trouble here. Uh, some people are saying my camera is lagging. Oh, maybe it's better now. We'll see.
I mean,
You can have everything
you
perfect, but
sound
internet
fine.
still plays a trick
Seems to
on
be just
you.
video
Okay,
for
that's
whatever
good.
reason. I did want to interject a little bit. If we wanted to take questions throughout the show, or if we wanted to focus on more towards the end, we do have some questions that are able to be brought up, but they are somewhat what we covered already. So I thought maybe we'd
It
do that as a
depends. Are they
Q&A at the end.
easy? If they're easy, we can do them now. If not, we do them later.
Yeah.
Some of our are pretty straightforward and actually answered by some of the videos that we are having coming up soon. So some of these are more technical. Some are just, why doesn't it work with this card or something? There are quite a lot of questions about why it doesn't run on, say, a 10 series card, but we covered that a little bit earlier. To paraphrase, it's been optimized to use the tensor cores on the newer generation of GPUs. And so if there was it was a beta, correct, of NVIDIA Broadcast?
Yeah, I can give you guys a technical explanation if you want, just for funs.
Sure.
So an AI model, you can run it on CPU if you want to, right? The problem is optimizing it. If you want to run something both on CUDA and Tensor, the problem is that you need to design them in separate ways and you need to optimize them in separate ways. So with our objective with the NVIDIA broadcast technologies is that you're able to game and use these things at the same time. And in order to do that, we need to accelerate them as much as we can because you're doing the operations in between game frames. So they need to be very small operations so we don't delay the frame. With tensor cores, we're basically getting that acceleration. And you guys, some of you will notice if you turn on all of the effects, maybe even that is too much, right? Without tensor core acceleration, that effect gets a lot bigger. So, for example, the beta that we released, RTX Voice, could run on Tensor or on CUDA because it was running over cuDNN. cuDNN is a framework where you can make a model run on both. cuDNN is not optimized. You're not really using the tensor core completely. So what we saw there is that if you run RTX Voice with Tensor, you were getting a 1 to 3% perf hit on a game. It was great. But then without tensors, you were seeing 20 to 25% perf hits. And that went up if your GPU was lower. So then the challenge is that was just with one noise removal network. Virtual background is a lot heavier than noise removal. So then you would be seeing 50 to 60% FPS loss, which doesn't make any sense, right? No one would do 60% of their frames in their game to get 2FX on. So then the problem was, do you spend then all of the time to productize both paths when you know one of them is never going to work conceptually because you need tensor cores to make it run? Or did you just go for the other one, which allows you to do more effects? So you guys have seen that we started with noise removal, but now we have room echo removal, virtual background, video noise removal. We have AR tracking, so you can do auto frame, you can do overlays on you. So that was kind of the logic behind why you don't support it. It's something I personally hated because all of the technologies we've made for broadcast, we've made them backwards compatible. Every time we've optimized OBS, we made it backwards compatible. All of the software updates to the SDK, we try to make them work as far back as we can. I think we cut it off on Kepler. Kepler was released like 15, 16 years ago, right? So philosophically, we don't like to lock things up. In this case, the problem is just it's a product development issue where to enable it, it would have taken a significant amount of work, and you just knew it wasn't going to work. Or it wasn't going to work well. So then we decided to just optimize the other one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would want to sacrifice 20, 30, 40, or 50% of their game's performance just for some noise removal. And I mean, that just goes to show how much work is actually being done here. Or same thing with the background, just how much work is being done to take in, again, it could be a whole 1080p frame, it takes the raw frame, has to do all this calculation on to figure out where you are. And that's actually one of the reasons as well, and this kind of goes back to the question that we saw, which is, I can also do background removal and all these other apps, right? They have it kind of built in. Why would I use Camera Hub over one of these other ones? And it's, again, simply down to the quality. You can see here, right? Like even on my headset, it might be hard to, once the resolution scaling and all, it might be hard to see, but even my headset, there's a tiny little like piece connecting it. That's not being blurred, whereas everything right next to it is. You can see my hand here. There's almost no like visible lines of where it is. And so in other applications, what will often happen is if you like hold your hand up, suddenly half your head is blurred out, or if you do one of the other background effects here, you can kind of see just how crisp and how clean it is. It's even taking away here actually the microphone arm. So if I move that down, now I'm here. And if I move around, I mean, there is almost it, depending on how you're looking at it, you could almost think like this is real, right? Because the edge detection is just so good and it's doing such a great job. And this is the kind of thing that you just can't really brute force it through software. You really do want a like an optimized solution for this, and that's what you get when you use Camera Hub. Now you get that virtual camera, you add it into something again like Zoom or OBS or Streamlabs desktop, and then you have these really, really high quality effects.
So, speaking of optimization, this is something that I think would be an interesting question for either of you. See if that comes up. There we go. Is the functionality of NVIDIA Broadcast better optimized with Elgato products? And in a way, because it's directly integrated, it kind of is. Isn't that right?
Well, not only that, is that you guys have a better model because
Oh,
your models are the latest and greatest. So in NVIDIA Broadcast, we're slightly behind on the audio one. We still have to update to it. So it's both, you have a simpler path, which should simplify things. You don't have as many jumps. You don't have to put another application behind it. You don't have to run another executable with the different GPU prioritization issues it entails. And you guys have a newer model, which is higher quality because it has new profiles.
Yeah, and I think a big key thing there is what you mentioned around essentially less paths, right? Instead of going from, say, Facecam to NVIDIA Broadcast, and then maybe to Camera Hub, and then out to OBS, or having to run additional applications, it's now just your Facecam goes into Camera Hub, from Camera Hub into OBS, and you're live, and that's it. So you're reducing the amount of potential issues that can come up. You're saving resources, CPU, GPU, RAM, pretty much across the board. You're saving, in some cases, it's a smaller percent. Not something you can notice. In other cases, it might be a little bit larger. And that's really, you just want less stuff running, and that's what this integration gives you. Alongside, as we've now heard a couple times, the newer training data there. So yeah, it just works a little bit better.
You can see I'm jealous, right? You can see it's hurting me that they haven't let me update mine yet.
It's okay. Just keep giving us the good stuff. We'll put it out for you. Don't worry. We'll make our customers happy. um, so I think we've been doing a lot of talking, but I just want to remind everyone that we do have a giveaway, which will be running towards the end of this live stream. We're giving away a face cam to mark the release of Camera Hub 1.3 with background effects, and we're giving away a Wave 3 microphone to mark the release of our noise removal VST. And that's actually one other thing I wanted to bring up, is that the audio effect that we released for the noise removal, it's not just in wavelength. So you don't necessarily even need a wave mic to use it. All you need is a software that can run VST3, or essentially it has to be a VST3 host. And then you can download and install the background noise removal right from our website. And if you have an RTX card, then you can run it, and then you get all the awesome benefits of the background noise removal. It's actually what I'm using
The
right now as well.
Yeah, the one I love is if you guys have videos, or imagine you do a live stream and you just wanted to edit it post, you can just load it in Premiere, put the live stream in Premiere, and then just filter it all out. If you have a video when you guys go out, or my favorite YouTubers now, a lot of them have horrible mics. And so I keep pinging them on Twitter. It's like, for the love of God, this thing is free, just take it. Because that's all you need to do. Just put the VST filter on top of it, and you get rid of all that disturbing noise.
Yeah. And of course, the audio quality, I mean, so this is an algorithm. The better the data is that you feed it, the better your result is going to be. So you start with a better microphone, you start with better audio going into it. It's also going to, have an easier time figuring out, okay, what's background noise, what's just, what's your voice, what is maybe keyboard typing or whatever. So, we're not saying like, essentially, to get the best performance out of it, you still want a good microphone. Of course, it can work with not as great microphones or headset mics that maybe aren't the best, or maybe you've got something from like 20 years ago. But yeah, if you feed it better data, it'll have more to work with, and then you could also reduce the amount that the essentially the strength of it. Um,
Oh, this is
actually,
actually. Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Do we go ahead?
I just had a question from the chat. Put this up. It was kind of mentioning a little bit what you were speaking of before, but they say, do you need to run a separate software for the VST, or would it work directly in the Wavelink app? And the answer is it works directly in Wavelink. There's no middleman type software that you need to run. And that VST is available for download on our website.
Actually, I wonder if I can demo it right now. I have a let's see. I've got a fan behind me that I might be able to turn on, and I want to see if it'll work.
I still have my vacuum.
Oh, you do? Do you
But
want? Can you demo it? I think that might be because it's so aggressive. It's just such a.
thing is, I need to make sure it doesn't cause harm when the filter's off.
All right, then why don't I try this
Yeah,
first?
you go ahead first.
I'm gonna turn this on, and I mean, there's quite a bit of. Let's see if I. Okay, so if I turn it off now, there should be quite a bit of fan noise, right? I mean, you guys can hear that. That's kind of obnoxious.
Yeah, a little bit.
So if I turn it on, and now it's just my voice.
Right.
That's it. That's how simple it is. So I've got a fan on. It's right here. It's right next to me. I can turn off the effect. Yeah, there's this annoying like background noise, really not great. Maybe it's a hot day, right? We do have all these heat waves going around in the world right now. Now I'm going to turn the effect back on, and hey, there we go. Now the background noise is gone. I can leave this on. I've got some great, air blowing my way. I can stay cool, and I can still stream with normal sounding audio. It'll also take out keyboard clicks. It'll also take out mouse clicks, kind of other sounds as well. So that's really that's how powerful it is. I mean, it's like magic.
The Nvidia broadcast thought this was the background for a second, so I have to make sure that's in front of me, so I'm not distracting it. So I'm going to turn down my gain a little bit because this is an extremely loud vacuum. And let's see. I'll turn off the effect.
Yeah, we can certainly hear the vacuum.
So I had to hold it away from my head as I toggle the effect on and off there.
We actually didn't. Oh, that's interesting. We didn't actually hear it ever turn on. So the audio path might not be set up right.
Oh, I was turning the effects off. Let's see.
Or at least we did.
Right. Okay. Well, hold on. I don't hear vacuum. Well,
maybe on the stream it was different. We have two different audio paths here, right? We have ones going to. Oh, I see. Okay, so maybe it was just that.
I'll turn off the effect. I'll delete the effect.